Okay, so here we go with now some RL circuitry stuff. As you can see again, I've drawn my two triangles, okay? And it doesn't matter what the drawing that they give you looks like. I know it's nasty. Believe me, it just looks bad. But what we do is we just create right triangles. So you again have a voltage triangle and you have an impedance triangle. Now you'll notice here these triangles are drawn differently than the RC circuits. It's because all these measurements are in the first quadrant on your coordinate plane. Okay, so everything is positive here. These are a little nicer to work with, a little more user-friendly. Okay. You have V sub R, still your voltage, V sub L, and E. So not much has changed except for these two. And it's just the location. That's all negative means in for these circuits is just the location. So you've got these two triangles. Your angle is still down here by where the origin of the axis was. And you have these trig ratios. So you can look through there. You can copy them down if you need to. But there are all your trig ratios. So again, sine of the angle. So remember, you always have to choose your reference angle before you choose your trig equation. Oftentimes people say, I want to do cosine. Well, you can't do cosine if you don't know two of the three measurements. So you always use your angle of reference and then pick a side you know, and then solve for the side you don't know. If you're finding the angle, then you pick two sides that you can use your trig equation for. So the last thing you actually choose is whether you're using sine, cosine, or tangent. Okay, you look at the angle, look at the sides, and find a combination of what you know, what you don't know, what you're trying to find, all that stuff. And then you say, okay, I can use cosine to find it, or I can use tangent to find it. Now, one little, I guess, I don't know, method or hint or whatever to make this a little easier or a little more user-friendly, it's always nice if you can, for all practical purposes, if your unknown is in one of these ratios and it's in the numerator. Because if you set this up to solve, all you have to do is cross multiply, and it's much easier to solve that way. So there's lots of little tricks to manipulating these formulas that you can do to save you time and not have as many steps for your equation. Another thing, don't forget about the Pythagorean Theorem. Once you know two sides of a right triangle, you can always use Pythagorean Theorem to find the third side. Okay. And I know I think I've mentioned it in my other videos I've created. When using the Pythagorean Theorem, you don't have to worry about the prefixes as long as they're the same for both measurements. It's just when you get that answer, the third measurement, make sure you keep that prefix with it. So in other words, if X sub L, was 20K and R was 30K, then just use 20 and 30. And then when you're done, make sure that your answer in Z is K ohms. Okay, so you don't have to worry about using the prefixes for the Pythagorean Theorem as long as both of them are the same prefix. Okay. Another issue that I didn't mention for the RC circuits, but I'll mention it now. The angles in these triangles are the same. So once you find the angle in one triangle, if you are doing a problem that involves finding all measurements in both triangles, this angle measurement here is also that angle measurement there because it is the same measurement within the circuit. Okay, it's just we're measuring two different things. We're measuring voltage and we're measuring what's called impedance. You don't need to know what those are if you're not in the program. And this again was what I was talking about early on that can be intimidating trying to figure out what all this stuff is if you're not in the program. Those of y'all in the program probably are familiar with this stuff. Okay. And then lastly, this formula is very similar to the one for X sub C. It again is a little more user-friendly because all you have to do is multiply the three numbers together. But don't forget, 2 pi is 6.28. And if you get a prefix in here, if it's 10 kilohertz or 20 kilohertz, you got to do times 10 to whatever. L is often measured in milli. That's the little m. And that's times 10 to the negative third. So, you've got to account for those prefixes, because if you multiply those three together without them, then your answer is going to be off a little bit. Then everything you do from there on out is wrong. Okay, so hopefully, I've helped you out a little bit. But again, you've got to be able to do this trigonometry. I mean, it's a big part of what you're going to be tested on next. So practice it. Go back and practice it in the section before this where you just did trigonometry. And if you have questions, once again, email me. But it's very, very hard to explain these over email. Tutoring is better. Stopping by my office is better. Going to your local campus is better. And it might just be a couple things you're doing incorrectly that can be very easily taught to you. So, as promised, I've created a couple videos. I got to get something to hang that camera down from because I got to keep turning these things around, but that's okay. So hopefully this helps. And, I'm going to stop there and upload these to YouTube. Good luck. Have a good weekend.